Hey YouTube, how's it going? Red Baron flying at you with yet another Elestrals weekly deck breakdown. And this week, we have the meta of all meta decks. 5 Guys built by LUCK. So let's get into it and see why this deck is so good. Alright, so here's the 5 Guys deck built by LUCK. And as you can see, it consists of all 5 elements. So this time, I'm going to break down this deck, tell you why it's so good, and I'm actually going to end the video on telling you the weaknesses of this deck. So let's first start off. We're actually going to start off backwards this time. We're going to actually start in the counter runes area and then work our way from there. All right, so let's see. All right, so here is his lineup of counter runes for the deck. And he has nearly all of them. This deck focuses so much on the counter rune package to keep his Elestrals alive and to maintain his field presence. So he has triple Tsunami, triple Gorgon's Gaze, triple Shield of Achilles, triple Poison Tipped Arrows, but here's something a little bit different that you guys probably haven't seen. He runs 3 Helios's Chariot Rides. So Helios Chariot Rides can only be activated during a player's draw phase. And when it is activated, your opponent cannot cast any runes of any kind. So what does this mean for him? It means that he's allowed to freely attack during his turn. He has a lot of Elestrals with high stats, and he just wants them to be able to get over anything else. So, and let's go over to the Elestrals side, and we can explain more about how Helios Chariot is connected with his Elestrals. All right, so as the title says, this is 5 Guys deck. So, what are we looking at? We're looking at nothing but 5 Guys. Sure, Viserys is a 4 attack normally, but it boosts itself by +1 attack for each Viserys on the field, so it comes in as a 5/2. We have Astrabbit, the 5 guy, has 5 defense. We have Galaxy, it's a 2/5, and then as long as it's enchanted with the water, it swaps its stats, and it's a 5 attacker. We also have Swordlet, a naturally 5/1. We have Nekruff. Nekruff is also a 5/1. And then we have Small Tuga, his tech, which comes in as a 2/5. So as you can see, the stats of all these Elestrals is 5. So what makes this so important? Besides Mestation, which is a 1/6 that can swap its attack and defense by expending a water, all of these Elestrals have the highest attack stat of all Elestrals. It's just 5. 5 is the max you can go. Besides that one, besides Mestation. So his view on this deck was, as long as I can beat over my opponent, they cannot get any field advantage whatsoever. So he uses his monster stats to gain advantage, because if the highest stat is 5, that means your opponent can't attack you or kill you, right? Yeah, and that's what the basis of this deck is. So let's go through each individual card and just see exactly what it does and what it brings to the deck. So you have Viserys, probably one of the stronger of the 5s right now. So it gains attack for each Viserys on the field. And then when it destroys an Elestral by battle, you get to special summon another Viserys, either normally enchanted or misenchanted, from your deck to the field. And what this also does is it increases its attack even further. So if you get this effect off once, then you all of a sudden have 2 Viseryses with 6 attack. Fortunately for your opponent though, the one that gets special summoned has to be special summoned in defense. Great card, really creates the tempo for the 5 Guys. Amazing. Then you have everybody's favorite rabbit, Astrabbit. This is to allow him to search for cards in his deck, search for this answer, search for his EQs, for any of the cards he needs. Again, 2/5, 5 defense. It is very hard to get over Astrabbit as it is, unless your opponent plays Divine Runes or Stadiums. They're gonna have a hard time getting over this, which will allow him to stall a bit longer to play his more stronger cards. Then you have Galaxy and you have Smoltuga. I want to do these together because they kind of combo off with each other. So Galaxy, as I stated before, as long as it's enchanted properly, it swaps its attack and defense. It becomes a natural 5/2. Normally by itself, it kind of seems vanilla, but then you have Smoltuga. Smoltuga is when it's normal cast, you actually can search your deck for an Celestial with a cost of 1 fire and add it to your hand. So what's this target for Smoltuga? Target for Smoltuga is Nekruff, only Nekruff. But Smoltuga, look at his stats. It's a 2/5 and with water. So if he has Smoltuga and Galaxy on the field, they're both 5/2 attackers. It was great. So onwards to Nekruff. Nekruff, when it's a 5/1, gets searchable by Smoltuga, and when it destroys an opponent, they have to expend a spirit. It was great. Really high attacker, pretty much hits over anything. And then finally, you have Sorlet. Sorlet is his get out of card, like get out of trouble card. Sorlet allows you to expend 1 wind and change the position of a Celestial. We'll get more into why this is important later on. So those are his base lineup of Elestrals. As you can see, it has 18 of them, very high, but each and every one of these Elestrals is relevant and does something important. So let's move over to his Invokes. All right, here are his Invokes, and as you can see, he doesn't run very many of them. He runs 3 Earthquakes for any of those problem Elestrals that are on the field. If he goes against the mirror match, or if he goes against Thunder that runs Astrabbit with a 5 defense, or the Smoltugas, you'll be able to use Earthquake to get over them. Ambrosia, necessary at 3. You are running all 5 elements, so you'll need to be able to manage your spirits correctly. And then his last card is Nectar of the Gods, just because it's one of, and you might as well use it to be able to draw. So that was his whole deck. Let's go to his side deck. Sorry, excuse me, not his side deck, his spirit deck, and see what's going on there. It's very, very interesting. All right, so here we have his whole spirits. All of his spirits are all the way down there. He's running 5 Tyratluses, 5 Zaptors, 4 Leviathans, 3 Lycarises, and 3 Viperos. So let's actually start backwards here a little bit. Let's take a look at his deck. His deck only consists of 3 fire. So this is the one thing that is that can be changed in this spirit deck. Technically, when you have 3 of right here, and you need the resources for it, you don't really need to have 3. He doesn't need to run the 3 Viperos. He could actually take 1 Vipero, I think, out and just put another Lycaris or the Sorlet to be able to use its effect and summon more Sorlets later on. So he uses Viperos just for the Nekruffs. He doesn't need any more. You could actually go down to 2. Lycarises, he has 3, 4 is Sorlets. Now, this doesn't leave him much maneuverability with Sorlet's effect, but this deck doesn't really care whether it's misenchanted or not. So even if he can't use Sorlet's effect, it's still a 5 attacker. So he could misenchant it with a Zaptor or a Tyratlus, and it'll still beat over things. But again, I believe this could go up to 4 and he'd still be relatively comfortable. Next, let's move over to water. His water sources are Tsunami, Smoltuga, and Galaxy. Again, Tsunami, he's going to want to use a lot of this water for Tsunami to be able to use it for defense. So he'll keep a few back for Smoltuga and Galaxy. But again, even if he has to misenchant Galaxy or Smoltuga, he doesn't care because it's still a 5 stat Celestial and it's really hard to get over that. And honestly, misenchanting Galaxy and just putting it defense isn't the end of the world. You just continue on and your opponent has to struggle just getting over 5 defense, excuse me. So then let's go to Zaptor. Zaptor is great. He has 5 here. For Ambrosia, for Astrabbit. Now this is really interesting. Previously I talked about how you don't really need more resources than you have. Like he only runs 3 sources of thunder, so why is he running 5 Zaptors? Well, Astrabbit is that good. He can use not only that, Astrabbit is really good. So if he needs to use Astrabbit's effect multiple times, if he needs to re-enchant, he can. And if he doesn't, if he doesn't want to, this means that he can use these extra Zaptors. He can use these extra Zaptors for his counters. Because as you can see, spirits, you have to precisely use your spirit deck when playing this card, when playing this deck. So these excess Zaptors allow him to freely use the spirits, these extra spirits, for these counters, and don't have to worry about messing up any of his other spirit counts. Now let's go to last but not least, Turretless. Turretless he has 5 of. This is very important because he's running Earthquake. He definitely needs a lot more of these than any of the other ones. He has the Versaries, but Versaries itself, like I said, you don't need to actually enchant it properly. Well, first you might need to, just to get its effect off, or else it won't be a 5 beater. But when you special summon the other one, you technically don't need to do that. So he saves most of these for his Earthquakes. Well, I think he said these were the last, if he had to use spirits, these were the last ones he has to use, because Earthquake and Viserys are just that important. So that's pretty much his whole deck. So I wanted to go into why this deck is so good at the moment. This deck, like as I said before, it has high stats. For a normal deck, this is really hard to get over. Just the stats alone, if you're hitting your opponent over and over and over again, eventually LUCK is going to have a full board of 5 stats and you just can't do anything about it. And with all that pressure that it creates, especially with Helios's Chariot Ride, Helios's Chariot Ride allow him to get these attacks in with your opponent not being able to do anything. Now, this deck, in terms of difficulty, would definitely have to be top. It is a very, very hard deck to manipulate. I would not recommend this deck for anybody who's new at the game. First, get used to how to use your spirits, how each Celestial works, and then go from there. This is a very, very high competitive level deck. And in terms of weaknesses, there are some, but there aren't none. So let's go over what the weaknesses are in this deck. So, and it's funny because its strength is also its weakness. As I mentioned, it's 5 attack or 5 stat deck, but it's a 5-guy deck. But that's all you get. That means you know the stats of his cards. They're not going to increase. They won't decrease. So you can actually use this to your advantage. You can use things like stadiums. If you play a stadium and then play your own Viserys's, or play your own Volcaries or Tictarus's, you can get over the majority of his cards. And he can't do anything to you unless he draws Earthquake or draws Sorlet to get over those. So you have artifacts, which boosts your attack by at least 2. You have stadiums that boost the attack +1 for each equipped spirit. And you can also have divine runes, which also increase, decrease, or help support your deck. These cards are very good against this style of deck because he can't do anything against them. Eventually, it'll probably be more so back and forth if you're using divine runes. Because even if you get over a 5-guy, he'll probably immediately summon another 5-guy and you probably might be in trouble. But more so for artifacts and stadiums. If you can get, because he has no answer to stadiums in this deck. Look at this whole deck. He has 0 answers to stadium. So once you play that stadium, it's there for the rest of the game. And that means all your cards get a boost, and any 5 guys that you have yourself will become now 6s, and he can't get over that. Again, without Sorlet, but Sorlet has very little. He's not going to be able to use Sorlet's effect that much because he only has 2 extra Lycarises in his deck. So unless he plans around it correctly and uses Ambrosia to manipulate the spirits from his underworld and bring it back to his spirit deck, he won't be able to get over any of those Elestrals. That, or he just waits on EQ. So he's just playing the waiting game while you're hitting over things. Not only that, the second weakness of this deck is actually technically all decks are weak to this right now because of the heavy back row, but it is super weak to the lock, to what do we call it? We're calling it the Trident lock. Yeah, we're calling it the Trident lock now. With using Poseidon and the Trident of Poseidon, if you get those out early in the game, he can't do anything. He literally, his whole strategy is to use back row to stop you from getting field position. And when you're running Trident lock, the only thing you really need to miss, or the only thing you need to dodge, is PTA. That's 3 cards in his deck initially, just to get the strategy off. You just need to dodge PTA. Everything else is fine. If he uses Tsunami, then you just hope that you have a back row to protect for that 1 turn, maybe your own Tsunami, and then he's fine. But once you play that, you're pretty much smooth sailing. And his only outs to the Poseidon lock or Trident lock is EQ and Sorlet, and he has no way to search those out. Well, he has Astrabbit, which can help look at the top deck, and he has 1 Nog, which is not much, but he does have a lot of deck thinning capabilities with Smoltuga and Astrabbit. So they have this, but he doesn't draw those answers. He will get steamrolled. This deck gets steamrolled fairly easily. And you can use these packages various ways. What I like to do, I run Poseidon, the Trident. I run Hephaestus to get the Trident, and I also run Elechic. Elechic allows you to search for Divine Rune. These are the main 4 cards for the Trident lock. Again, you have Poseidon, you have its Trident, you have Hephaestus, and then you have Elechic. If you have this, you'll be able to easily get that Trident lock out and just run over this deck. And just in the meantime, if he tries to play Sorlet, hopefully by that time you have an answer to Sorlet. Maybe you have your own GG to stop it from activating its effect, or maybe you have Alter the Stars, which allows you to change your Elestral's position back again. Who knows? But by that time, he not only has to worry about getting over, finding an answer for your really high stat Elestral, but he also has to worry about your back row. Of course, that's also why he has Helios Chariot in there. So when he does find the answers and plays Helios Chariot, it allows him to just go off and not have to worry about you answering it. And yeah, that's all. Also, sorry, before I forget, it's also weak to, of course, Trident lock brings the anti-counter rune strategy, but of course there's also Sonic Core. Sonic Core and Galvanom are very strong if they hit. If they stay on field, those cards are very strong against this whole deck. They just swing over everything. He can't activate anything. It prevents him from activating his Helios Chariot. And unless he draws a Sorlet to attack over Sonic Core, then he's just sitting there. This deck will just be sitting there. Galvanom kind of does the same thing. If you get Galvanom, its stats are naturally higher than everything else. The only thing you really have to worry about is double Viserys. If he somehow gets 2 of them on the field, they're the same stat as Galvanom, they can crash into it. Or you have to worry about, other than that, you only have to worry about EQ and Sorlet. But if you're running a good optimized Thunder deck, then you're just blowing up everything on his field and attacking. A very good card for this. And yeah, that's this deck. This deck is very strong. I really recommend anybody who's confident in themselves to try this deck out. Definitely one of the top decks, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you later. Fly high.